Hey, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from the Street Scores coming with one of those Rico reports where there's a lot of topics crammed into one episode. We have to talk about when the name will change. It's been confirmed that we will get a new name. We have to discuss the realistic possibilities of Jeff Bezos becoming the owner of the Washington football team, or the Washington whatever it's going to be by then. Also, is the Brandon Scherff long-term deal going to happen? And a look at how much it may cost us. A look into our current quarterback situation and what it would take to get some of these guys that are options. And then much more, including a Sadiq Charles injury update. So let's go ahead and get to it. Let's get it. First of all, Washington just launched a website saying new name, new era for 2022. The website is WashingtonJourney.com. So apparently we will go about the Washington football team for at least 2021. And then there will be a new name, a new identity, and all of that 2022. So, I mean, that's interesting to know that there is like a definitive deadline for when we'll get a name change, if any at all. I mean, until this news came out, I wasn't sure if we were ever going to change our name at all. So, it's interesting to know, especially for those of y'all that hate the current name, that there will be a name change and it will happen by 2022. The quote on the website says, "We've transitioned from our old name. Now it's time to write a new legacy. The future of Washington football arrives in 2022. And there's also a quote, "We'll work with Nike, the NFL, and our internal team to start bringing that new identity to life on and off the field." And it's interesting that they already have a definitive date, which means they already know they have a name, because they wouldn't put 2022 unless they already had a strong candidate for a name and an identity logo and all of that in mind already. So it seems like they may just be waiting on legal stuff like trademarks and all of that to go through. Because I mean, for you to just announce 2022, we will have it, that means that you're ready. You already have a plan. You know exactly what name you're going with. They just don't want to announce it yet until everything gets sorted out. So that's interesting. Sounds like we don't even have a chance to change their mind. I mean, whatever it's gonna be, it's probably already decided, just to let y'all know. But we'll see. You never know, man. Y'all already know I'm Team Red Wolves, but there's a lot of other interesting names out there. And at the end of the day, I'm burgundy and gold. So whatever it is, it's whatever. You know what I mean? I care more about X's and O's and the players and film study and draft prospects and team building and all of that type of stuff more than the name and stuff. Moving on, Jeff Bezos is being linked to becoming the new owner for the Washington football team. Well, by the time he may end up becoming the owner, if he does, it probably won't be the Washington football team. It'll be Washington something else. Hopefully DC something else, but we'll see. Bezos' attorney already spoke with the Baltimore-based sports investment banking firm Moag and Company, which led the effort to sell a portion of the Washington football team. So, I mean, the connections are there. But the only problem is, this is highly unlikely to happen, because even if Jeff Bezos is able to buy a piece of the team, he's gonna want the full team. He doesn't just want a piece of it. So even if the other minority owners are willing to sell the team to him, which is very likely, it's gonna be hard for him to convince Dan Snyder to come up off that other percentage, the majority of the percentage. Because again, Jeff Bezos will want the entire team, not just a piece of it. And we've already seen Dan Snyder is extremely stubborn when it comes to a lot of topics. And I feel like this is the last one. If anything that he would stand on, it would be this. But if Snyder for some odd reason becomes interested in selling, or is just somehow forced to sell, Jeff Bezos is probably a very likely candidate, because it's clear that he's interested. Literally the only thing in the way is Dan Snyder. And it's really interesting too, because Dan Snyder's worth $2.3 billion. Jeff Bezos is worth $191 billion. That's 83 Dan Snyders. That's what type of money Jeff Bezos is working with. There's different types of money. That's not the same level. If Dan Snyder's making picks for the draft on his yacht, that means Jeff Bezos is doing it from space. That's the gap in their money right there. Moving on. And good news for us that do want Brandon Scherff. Hopefully not for some ridiculous amount of money, but for those of us that do want Brandon Scherff, the Washington football team is very intent on extending Brandon Scherff instead of franchise tagging him. They will begin open contract negotiations within the next few days, but it is believed that if they can't agree on a long-term deal, that the Washington football team would likely franchise tag him again And this time it will cost $18 million this season rather than the $15 million it cost last season, which is crazy because the salary cap's going down. So that's like insane. I mean, I know franchise tags go up and up and up each season, but this is a different scenario. The salary cap usually goes up and up every season, so I don't know how that works. But I would definitely prefer to just go ahead and pay him about 14, 15 million a year long term than to pay him 18 million this year, especially in what could be the wildest free agency of NFL history. And there's going to be so many great talents out there that are going to be available just because of cap casualties with the entire cap space going down and teams not being able to afford a lot of their guys. There's going to be a lot of Larry Warfords out there. I'm actually working on a video analyzing more of the guys that may be available that we can target at positions of need. So be on the lookout for that. But back to Brandon Scherff. A good comparison that Tay and Todd podcast did is they compared what Brandon Scherff's potential contract could be to what Andrew Norwell signed with Jacksonville in 2018. He signed for 5 years, $66.5 million, which is a 13.2 average. And of course, you know, as the NFL goes further in time, the market only increases. So Brandon Scherff definitely wouldn't go for 13.2. But I can realistically see like a 14, 15, maybe even 16 million a year. A decent little market setter. The way the market works, it doesn't matter if you're the best at any particular position, but if you're good enough and you're the newest guy getting signed, you're going to be the one making the most money. That's just how the market works. Like Dak Prescott isn't the best quarterback in the NFL, but he's going to make the most money if the Cowboys are able to sign him long term, or just slightly less than Pat Mahomes. But what's interesting about Brandon Scherff is that on Spot Track, and they put in advanced calculations and really try to project accurate market values, and right now they have him estimated to make an annual salary of $12.7 million, which is very shocking. I mean, that's at least $3 million less than what I would think he would go for. And if we can get him for $12.7 million a year, you do that right now. Like, there's no questions asked. If he's willing to say yes to that, you do that today. But I'm just not sure. I don't think that's likely, honestly. Again, with the rules of how the market gets reset with each position each year, I just don't see him taking less than what other guys signed for back in 2018. Granted, the salary cap is going down, but that's not Brandon Scherff's concern. That's every franchise's concern, not the players. So him and his agent don't want to hear anything about that. Moving on, our quarterback situation is pretty interesting because John Keim said that a source told him that there were 5 quarterbacks the team wanted to dig more into as potential solutions this offseason, but they don't want to commit too much to obtain one and damage their rebuild. So it sounds like giving away whatever that 6 to 7 notable players plus early round picks to get Deshaun Watson is dead for us. I mean, you could already assume it was, but this report makes it like official. Deshaun Watson is impossible for us. And with the good reason. 6 to 7 players and early round picks on top of that, like, come on now. Deshaun Watson's going to end up getting traded from the Texans to the new Texans. As great as he is, even though he's a top 5 quarterback, if he doesn't have great enough players around him, he's going to win you 4 games. As much quarterbacks matter, that's not all that matters. Even a top 5 quarterback can only win 4 games if the team around him is terrible. And if you trade away 6 or 7 of your good to great players and early round draft picks so you can't build around them, it's donezo for the boy. It just sounds like Deshaun Watson's destined to be on a team that's just gonna suck. His old one or his potential new one. Keim also said that Washington doesn't see quarterbacks Kyle Allen and Taylor Heinicke as long-term options. Of course, like, we should all know that. That's pretty obvious. I mean, I love Taylor Heinicke, but durability concerns are there. And then I just don't like Kyle Allen. But they did say that they think the team could win 9 or 10 games with them. And potentially Alex Smith if he decides to play and is willing to take a pay cut. That's the big part of that. They're only willing to keep Alex Smith if he's willing to take a pay cut, which is big because that's the reason I don't want Alex Smith. I mean, if he's making cheap money like Taylor Heinicke, $2 million a year, then I don't really see too much of a negative of keeping Alex Smith. But that 25 he's due, we can cut him and get $15 million of that back to use, again, in potentially the craziest free agency in NFL history. That $15 million matters more this year than most other years, if not every other year. But that's interesting to know that they already have evaluated that Kyle Allen, Taylor Heinicke, and Alex Smith are not long-term solutions. Alex Smith is obvious because of age and health. But Kyle Allen and Taylor Heinicke, that's pretty interesting because a lot of people out there do feel like we can win long-term with these guys. And I mean, I'm not giving up on Taylor Heinicke, but I'm also not about to put my full trust into him. That's why I'm trade up for a quarterback. But it's also interesting to know that they feel like they could win 9 or 10 games next year with them, but then what after that type of thing. And speaking of trading up for a quarterback, there's another trade scenario out there where we can move up to the 7th pick where the Detroit Lions currently are. They already have their quarterback, and I'm pretty sure they would love to pick up even more first round picks than they have just from the Rams, also ours and their own, so they could truly be one of those rebuilding teams, just like the Dolphins just did. I mean, look at they went 10-6 with quarterback trouble. Their roster is that good, and they still have first round picks that aren't just theirs. They're the Houston Texans first round pick. So I guess the Lions are trying to follow that blueprint. But there's a realistic trade scenario where we could give up our first round pick, 19th overall, our 51st overall, our 82nd, and then a first round pick next year to move up to get potentially Justin Fields, Zach Wilson if he would have fallen that far, Trey Lance if he would have fallen that far. That's just something interesting to keep track of. Also, speaking of quarterbacks, it is assumed that a second rounder is the price for Sam Darnold. And if we haven't made the move to go get him yet, probably means we won't, unless the asking price goes down or unless the quarterback market completely dries up and then like maybe after the draft there was no way for them to trade up for their guy or just their guy to fall to him or whatever. I feel like Sam Darnold would probably be the backup plan. Again, since this is like the assumed price and this is what like is widely known amongst NFL franchises, the fact that it hasn't happened means that no team feels like that should be the price. Also, the Washington football team is involved in Marcus Mariota. There's clear interest there, but they're only willing to give up a day 3 pick for him. And it's quite likely that the Raiders may end up having to just release him and we could possibly bring him in as a free agent. So that's very interesting to keep track of. And lastly, as far as quarterbacks go, it's a rumor that Alabama quarterback Mac Jones has a floor of going 8th overall in the draft. And thank goodness, because I do not want him to land over him. I do not want him to fall to 19 and they trick themselves into trying to make him work out. So please go to like the Panthers, go to the 49ers at like 12 or something. The Patriots, I would die laughing if they go to the Patriots. I know Shea would be hot. So yeah, man, Mac Jones, do your thing. Just don't do it over here, man. In random news, Sadiq Charles is progressing well from his knee injury that killed his rookie 2020 season. It is said that the coaches really like him and he's going to be allowed to compete at left tackle and left guard during the summer. I'm really interested in seeing which one he could possibly fight for a starting role for. I think left guard would be more likely. I think it would be easier for him to unseat Wes Schweitzer over Cornelius Lucas, but I like both of them anyway. So we'll see. That's really interesting to keep track of. Also, it is said that Chase Young's impact isn't just shown on the field, but also off the field. There were rumors that around the franchise that the coaches were worried about Montez Sweat's work ethic after the 2019 season. But after Chase Young came in this past season and we had just this infectious energy and leadership and culture that he brought, they say that all of Montez Sweat's concerns are completely gone. He's one of the most motivated guys out there, always giving it 110% and all of that. So that just lets you know what that Chase Young pick did for us. Not just what he does on the field, but what he does off the field to motivate everybody around him to be great. Also, there are analysts out there that are really thinking that we may end up being the ones to get Allen Robinson. Now, I prefer Corey Davis because of how much cheaper he would be, but I wouldn't be mad at Allen Robinson. I mean, he's better than Corey Davis, but he's also going to cost more. I mean, Allen Robinson may be like $20 million a year. I think Corey Davis may go for somewhere between 12 to 15. And I believe their gap isn't that huge for Allen Robinson to be asking for potentially $7 more million a year than Corey Davis. So again, Allen Robinson is the better receiver, but Corey Davis is the better value. And lastly, and this is one of my favorite things that I've heard about these past few days that I'm reporting today in this video, is that Washington is looking like a pretty favorable free agent destination right now. Not only just with us having top 5 cap space, but it's said that around the league, teams and players have a lot of respect for Ron Rivera, his front office, and his roster. So as far as making trades, as far as bringing in free agents, that's great news because we have not had that for basically like the last 20 years. So that's a big breath of fresh air because it was already hard for us to get free agents in the past. But then when we did, they would tax us and charge us like the max amount of money they could because they felt like the culture was bad. And they were basically like, if I'm going to sit here and be in this bad culture, this bad front office situation and lose these games, I need to at least make as much money as possible. But now with players respecting and trusting Ron Rivera, believing in his vision, and believe that we can end up being a really good team next year and in the future, we may be able to get top talent free agents for decent bargains. Not necessarily team-friendly deals, but for less than what they would have signed with Jake Gruden's era and the eras before that. So look for us to finally be one of those free agent destinations out here, man. I'm really excited about that because free agency is how you win, man, for real. I mean, drafting very well also, but the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl because they were a combination of great drafting and free agency. Player development also, and I also feel like we have that on our side because with all of the free agents we brought in last year, with a lot of unheralded names like Logan Thomas, Cornelius Lucas, even Jerron Christian, J.D. McKissick, Ronald Darby, Wes Schweitzer, what we got out of all of those guys just shows that we now have coaches that know what they want in guys and know exactly how to get what they want out of those guys. Great talent evaluators and great developers. That's very important, especially since we did that without a true offseason too, with everything being all mixed up and different. So I'm only expecting bigger and better things in the future from this team. And the fact that teams and players around the league are taking notice is huge news. This should really be the breaking news of this entire video. I don't think people understand how important that is for us because we have not had that. And there's a reason that we haven't been able to sustain long-term success. Consistent success. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. I know it may have been a little all over the place, but it was just a lot to discuss. And I just like making these videos where I just cram everything together so y'all can just listen to one long video and hear all of the information that you would love to hear. Not all of it is the best news ever, but a lot of it was great news. And I'm hoping a lot of this information made y'all days better because I know it made mine, especially that last one we just talked about. But as always, man, please like this video if you liked it. If you learned anything, please subscribe. If you haven't, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification every time I release a video like this one, every time I release a mock draft, every time I release a film session, and every time I live stream, man. Much appreciated to everybody, man. I really appreciate all of the support, all of the donations. Big shouts outs to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose names you see scrolling on the screen right now. Man, I really appreciate all y'all. Catch y'all later. I'm out.